I'm Devorah Wallen, and I'd like to share my Tea for Two, my Torah thought for 2 minutes, more or less. This week's Parsha is Parshas Va'era, and I appeared, which refers to God's statement, and I appeared to Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov with the name Kael, but I did not make myself known to them with the name Hashem. This refers to the ineffable four-letter name of Hashem. This Parsha is about the backbreaking labor of the Jewish people enslaved in Egypt. Most prevalent in our Parsha is God's encouraging Moshe to go to Paro and tell him to let the Jewish people leave Egypt. We know that Pharaoh's heart was hardened on his own, but at the end of the portion it says, "And when Pharaoh saw the rain and the hail and the thunders were ceased, he sinned yet more, and he hardened his heart, he and his servants. And the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he did not let the children of Israel go, as the Lord had spoken by Moses." Throughout the book of Shemos, Exodus, we find Pharaoh's hardened heart mentioned approximately 15 times. Very rarely in the Torah do we have something that is repeated over and over. Clearly, this shows how depraved and stuck Pharaoh was. We learn in neuroscience that when a person has significant trauma or severe emotional reaction to something, their amygdala, the brain's century, becomes hijacked. Suddenly, there's a sort of tunnel vision when there are fewer and fewer options or alternatives. This is like an addiction. The more a person does the repeated behavior, the more entrenched in it he becomes. This is a central principle in neuroplasticity, that the repetition of behaviors over time changes the brain for better or for worse. Repeatedly practicing a negative behavior, such as substance abuse, makes cessation nearly impossible. Change requires great effort over time, often prompted by intense pain or some intense change of heart or a spiritual awakening. Regarding Pharaoh's insolence, Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks says, "Consider addiction. The first few times when someone gambles or drinks alcohol or takes drugs, they may do so freely, knowing the risks but ignoring them. As time goes on, their dependency increases until the craving is so intense that they are almost powerless to resist it. At a certain point, they may have to go into rehabilitation. They no longer have the ability to stop without external support. As the Talmud says, a prisoner cannot release himself from prison. Pharaoh became so entrenched, drunken with his megalomania, he could not see himself out of his tunneled vision." The Torah calls a strong move in a positive direction teshuvah, literally return to our original unblemished state. In therapeutic terms, after a traumatic or challenging event, when a person heals, it's called post-traumatic growth. However, one needs to exert the effort to surmount the obstacle and to continue in the healthy direction. The Torah tells us that Pharaoh and his servants hardened their hearts even more than prior. Apparently, the hail was like orbs of ice on the outside with fireballs swirling on the inside. After this horrific plague subsided, Pharaoh fell back to his default mode of being addicted to his megalomaniacal drive to crush the Jewish people. Here is the psychological assessment of the 13th century commentator Chizkuni regarding Pharaoh. "It is the usual way of confirmed sinners that when under extreme duress, they are forced to pay lip service to a confession, but as soon as the emergency is past, they revert to their accustomed attitudes. We know from their own words they had felt hard-pressed when the Torah referred to such people by writing that they took their beast indoors to escape the plague. Now that relief had come, they reverted to business as usual." Chizkuni goes on to say, due to his recalcitrance, later Pharaoh was punished by being drowned in the Red Sea. So Pharaoh's end was rightfully earned as a divine retribution for his reprehensible behavior. Meanwhile, back to the 21st century. The story of Pharaoh's personality problems is not an ancient one. All around us today, we see the same issue. We need the mindful awareness to prevent our ego's impulsivity to cause tunnel vision. Let us heed the Torah's warning to prevent our fall. King Solomon says in Mishlei, Proverbs, "The pride of a man will humiliate him, but the humble in spirit will retain honor." May we humble ourselves enough to be open and catch ourselves from becoming stubborn so we can humbly retain our honor.